Thank you very much, gentlemen. I am here with Wild Turtle, who, along with the rest of TSM, has just punched their ticket to the finals match in Vancouver next weekend. This is going to be your first appearance in an NA LCS final in a year. How does that feel?
Feels pretty good to be playing in the finals again. I haven't played in the finals for a really long time, as you guys know. And it always just feels better to play for first place.
Absolutely does, and especially it's going to be even cooler for you because you get to head back up north, back to Canada, play in front of the hometown type of crowd. What kind of energy is that giving you?
It's always like nice playing a Canadian crowd. I was there last year in Toronto, and even though we were playing for third place match, the energy in the stadium was always crazy, and I always have a lot of fun playing in Canada.
And you know, you guys are going to finals, but so are Cloud9. You both won 3-0 in your semifinal matches, #1 and #2 throughout the regular split. This looks like it's going to be a hell of a series. What are you and TSM going to do to be preparing for this and make sure you walk away victorious?
We're just going to go in with a really good mentality. I don't want to underestimate Cloud9 or anything, and we just want to bring our A game that day when we play them.
All right, well, let's hope that works out well for them. Good luck to you, my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time for Wild Turtle and TSM. We're going to be seeing them one more time next weekend in Vancouver, fighting for that championship. But for now, we're going to throw things back to the desk.
Thank you very much, Captain Flowers. Both semifinal series this weekend, 3-0 fashion, so hugely dominant performances, both out of C9 and TSM here today. Going to make for a very exciting finals, as was mentioned. I mean, two teams that are no strangers to the finals here in North America.
Yeah, I mean, even last year, heading up to Worlds, the summer finals, we get a rematch here. You know, Cloud9 do want some revenge against TSM.
Yep, quite a little bit. And then, of course, as was mentioned there, Wild Turtle making an appearance back in the finals will be nice for him also in Canada to be making that appearance. But now let's talk about how TSM got there, breaking down, you know, not only this Game 3, but the series as a whole, specifically here in Game 3. I mean, TSM, they just, as was mentioned kind of at the beginning of the day, feel like the better team across the board. You do get that kind of gear check sense when watching this squad play.
Right. I mean, we see that FlyQuest tries to make a lot of crazy plays happen, but we saw that, you know, TSM has great objective control. They managed to take like way more dragons over the course of this series, and you're always kind of playing from behind that sense where they're generally beating you in CS. They generally have more dragons taken than you, and you really have to play extremely well to match up against them, and FlyQuest came up a little short.
Right, we saw even with 2 early kills on the side of FlyQuest that the gold was essentially even, right? And that's kind of speaks to what you're talking about here. TSM get ever so small incremental advantages kind of across the board that can allow them in some cases to go down in kills or down in turrets.
It kind of feels like even when FlyQuest are making you know, the early skirmish plays and they're getting a little bit of gold, you're kind of waiting for the big mistakes to come through, and you're waiting for the big crash from TSM. You know, they have that play bottom, then they have a couple top, and then it really feels like once one of them pops up, then the cracks really get exposed.
Let's take a look at one of them. 15 minutes in, 2-0 here for TSM in the bot lane. Speaks exactly to what you're talking about here. Both teams looking to fight, but TSM is going to come out on top.
It really does look like a good opportunity here for FlyQuest to cut off the overextending TSM, but Alt-Tech gets extremely low at the start of the fight. Bjergsen is 1v1ing high on the top side, so both backline members of FlyQuest get super low down, and after that, it's too hard for them to try and chase. It gets turned back around, and TSM's able to pick up a 2-0.
Felt like they tunneled a little bit there on getting the Nautilus as opposed to, you know, maybe moving that ball onto the Maokai and going more for the backline with a nice shockwave. Could have opened up that fight a bit more.
All their DPS gets chunked out so early. It really took a lot of the fight out there. And, you know, the shockwave being down plus huge amounts of health, they immediately have to retreat, and Bjergsen does a very good job with that Weaver's Wall as well to cut them in half after they're weak.
Not a ton to analyze here, but I do want to take a look at the fight that essentially put the nail in the coffin. 27-40 for TSM in the mid lane. They're going to get the ace. The Baron will follow, and that's all the tools they need to close out the series.
Yeah, and I did like the comp for FlyQuest a little bit more here. They have a lot more engaged tools, and they were able to scrap pretty well over the course of like the mid lane fights that happened for what felt like 5 to 10 minutes at the end here. But TSM, over time, slowly starts playing them better. They get the initial kill onto Balls at the start of this fight. They start trying to pressure around Baron a little bit more. FlyQuest is going to look for an opportunity to try to re-engage this, and eventually Bjergsen's going to have a really nice Weaver's Wall again.
Yeah, I mean, TSM won a bunch of consecutive health battles there, then retreat into their Fog of War again. Alt-Tech pushes up a little bit farther, and the TSM DPS had a nice angle. They were able to get a lot more out, and the cleanup looks a lot easier. Then we got this right down the middle of the road.
Yeah,
I would
making
say,
new lanes.
Mark, maybe there is, some criticism to be thrown at Altec specifically if we've got to pick someone off of FlyQuest to give some criticism towards, because not only that fight, but a few other fights, we saw some large mispositions that were really the catalyst for TSM saying, yes, let's take this one, and him getting kind of zeroed out so quickly.
Yeah, and it wasn't just this game, kind of all series long. When he was against Syndra in game 2, there were a number of times when they were trying to hold turrets and he found himself getting chunked out, or if not outright killed. That time also getting hit by a couple Nautilus hooks and things like that. So he definitely struggled a little bit. I think we were pretty surprised by his laning phase, able to get the better of Turtle for a lot of the games, but not able to actually transition that.
All in all being said, I think FlyQuest actually put up a pretty good fight here, and as Jet said, both the teams got 3-0'd. So the third place match is actually pretty exciting as well.
Oh yeah, and we'll get to that in just a moment. Before we do, I want to go ahead and talk about the top performer from today. And while we had lots of good performances and we had to narrow it down to a single pick, it's going to go to Hanser this time around, player of the series that is, but really felt like a team effort here for TSM.
Right, I mean, other than the very beginning of the first game against the Rumble pick as Nautilus, which is not a great matchup, he didn't have any struggles over the course of the game. Great Renekton play in game 2, set up a lot of these fights and really starts off this 4-4 that you see for the side of TSM. And then, like you said, a lot of people were playing well over the course of the series.
Yeah, quite often frontline, a well-played frontline does go a little bit more unnoticed than, big AP mage getting a bunch of kills. But Hanser definitely played it well, deserves this. Bjergsen, I think, is very close as well in this race and does deserve credit. But definitely going to be happy that Kevin here is going to take home the award.
I mean, even Turtle had a great game 1 on the Lucian pick, and then there was a lot of bot lane focus on the side of FlyQuest, so it's not surprising to see him not doing quite as well in lane. Maybe they got beat up a little bit more than you would have wanted to see, losing their turret kind of in 2v2 situations, but once he got out of lane, I think Turtle played extremely well.
Absolutely. All right, well, with this win, TSM have qualified for their 9th consecutive North American LCS Finals, and who better to face them than their rivals at the top of the table, Cloud9. As you can see here, those two teams will be playing on the 23rd, Phoenix 1 versus FlyQuest in that 3-4 matchup. So despite losing today, FlyQuest still get that opportunity to go to Vancouver, face off against Phoenix 1 for 3rd place. That all kicks off April 22nd with our championship match taking place on Sunday, the 23rd. Now, a reminder to join us after the show today for the North American LCS tonight, where myself, Jat, and Kobe will break down the weekend and look toward our matches in Vancouver. Now, we're going to do that in a moment over there with Jat, but I want to get your insights real quick on those matches in Vancouver. Kobe, you already mentioned. Both of our teams in the 3-4 matchup got 3-0'd, and both of our teams in the finals looked crazy dominant in those 3-0s. And it makes for very, very sweet matchups, I think, coming into the weekend next week.
Yeah, I think they should both be competitive series. As far as who got 3-0'd harder, then we get into the nitty-gritty, and I think that FlyQuest, one of the things that I did like was showing the other looks. We talked about, oh, this is not, FlyQuest, their typical stuff. I feel like they are pushing themselves a little bit, and it's not in the direction of, oh my God, we have to do Shaco and Blitzcrank and Mordekaiser and all these things. I think they're doing it in a better way, actually.
If you talk about within the series itself, Mark, it feels like within each of these 3 games, FlyQuest had windows of opportunity to win the game. If I recall from yesterday's series, C9 versus Phoenix 1, it felt a little bit more lopsided towards C9's favor in the fact that Phoenix 1 didn't have as many opportunities where they could control the game.
Right, and I think that actually speaks a lot to the jungler's performance, because we saw, Contracts have a great series versus P1. Moon, despite losing today, actually got the better of Sven Skarret in the very early portions of the game. Sven usually played well with his team later on, but you might see a little bit of a mismatch there in both series where the team with the better jungler, it might come out ahead.
Well, we got the 3-0s this week. Hopefully we get the 3-2s next week.
Sounds like all my solo queue teams. Oh yeah, team with a better jungler wins.
It's so strong. People are complaining now about it not being strong enough.
Oh, please. Anyway, yeah, we can hope for 5-game series next week. Now, before we close out our day over on Twitter, you sent us your Easter Sunday viewing experiences, and here are a couple that caught our eye. First up, we've got @Wasabi Roll showing off their furry friend sporting a Biofrost jersey. Love me some corgi action. Got one at home myself. And @AuraWilliam found some time while on duty to cheer on Cloud9. We thank you for your service, of course, but glad that you're able to find some time on the weekend here on Easter to join us for the LCS. That's going to do it for us here. So on behalf of myself, the casters, and the entire live broadcast crew, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in Vancouver or in 15.